For one glorious season, Patrick Ewing was the best big man in the game. But let's take it a step further. The numbers say that he had one of the greatest seasons from any center, period. This occurred in the 1989-90 season. He was reaching numbers that the league hadn't seen since Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was in his prime. There's one thing that the New York Knicks did that fully unleashed this beast. In the previous year, they were coached by Rick Pitino. He was an orchestrator of their high-power offense that demanded unprecedented three-point shooting. They averaged a mind-blowing 14 three-point attempts, which nearly broke the space-time continuum at the time. The group of Mark Jackson, Rod Strickland, Trent Tucker, Gerald Wilkins, and Johnny Newman was dubbed the Bomb Squad. So they utilized a much more balanced scoring approach. But after losing to the Chicago Bulls in the semifinals, he left the team in order to coach for the University of Kentucky. But under their new coach, Stu Jackson, the offense was revamped and Ewing was the focal point. The scoring for the rest of his teammates went down, while Patrick's scoring average increased by nearly 6 points per game. This is what he averaged for the season: 28.6 points on 55% shooting, 10.9 rebounds, and 4 blocks per game. He posted historic numbers. He is only one of 3 players in league history to average at least 25 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 blocks for a season. Kareem and Hakeem were the only other players to reach those numbers. He was now the most dominant force in basketball and one of the frontrunners to win the MVP. For example, this is what Magic Johnson said to reporters during the All-Star break about Ewing's chances of winning the award. If he doesn't win it, he'll be right there. And if he continues putting up the numbers he's putting up, it's going to be hard for any of us to beat him out. He has taken his game to another level, a level I've never seen him play before. He's dominating offensively and defensively, but he's also making the right plays at the right time. He's leading his team as opposed to before when it seemed he let somebody else lead. That's the real mark of an MVP. That's right, Patrick Ewing was one of the favorites to win this award. Let's not forget that Magic, Barkley, and Jordan were all having MVP caliber seasons as well. Magic said it himself that he was playing at their level. This was something that surprised a lot of basketball fans. Although he was always a fantastic defender, he made so much progress in his offensive game since being drafted in 1985. Reggie Miller once gave us a nice history lesson of the revolution of Patrick Ewing for a segment on Open Court. He said this:
"You knew what you were getting defensively when the Knicks drafted Patrick. We knew he was going to protect the basket, but I think all of us would be a little bit shocked that he has over 25,000 points because he wasn't a scorer while he was at Georgetown. And the way he evolved offensively, but you talk about one of the meanest guys to protect the paint, Patrick Ewing was that guy."
Those days were long gone. He now had the total package. This was a testament to how hard he worked on his game. Stu Jackson mentioned that he was almost fanatical about weightlifting. Ewing's upper body was noticeably bigger from the previous year, and as Michael Thompson of the Lakers said, you can't push him out of the post as easily as you could before, and he's more experienced in how to get position and hold it. One guy just can't play him anymore. But that wasn't the only thing that allowed him to increase his scoring average. He became a much more skilled scorer. He expanded his low post moves. He could score on either hand. His mid-range game was more polished, and his athleticism allowed him to finish over the top of any player. Before his long battle with knee injuries, he was unstoppable on offense. There were so many times when he showcased the improvements that he made in his game. The most notable example came against the Boston Celtics. Against one of the stronger teams of the league, he proceeded to do this.
Even at 6'4", as Ewing goes over Patrick and hits 6 for 6. Second chance by the Knicks. Ewing on the double clutch. Tough move by Patrick. Showtime for Patrick. Look at Cheeks. Look at him.
Patrick Ewing scored 51 points in the game.
When it was all said and done, he scored his career high of 51 points on 69% shooting, along with 18 rebounds. This was only one of the many examples where he showcased his dominance. There were 10 other games where he scored over 40 points, which included 2 games where he posted over 40 points and 20 rebounds. That includes his monster performance against the Los Angeles Clippers. He had the outrageous stat line of 44 points on 64% shooting, 22 rebounds, 7 blocks, 4 assists, and 2 steals. To put this into context, he is currently one of 6 players to have over 40 points, 20 rebounds, and 5 blocks in a game. Since the merger, only he, Shaq, and Bob Lanier have accomplished that. There were also 2 games where he had 9 blocks. This was easily his greatest season, and the numbers back that up. He posted the highest points, blocks, win shares, offensive win shares, value over replacement player rating, box plus minus, offensive box plus minus, offensive rating, and PER of his career. For the year, he finished 2nd in blocks, 3rd in points, and 5th in rebounds. Patrick Ewing was never really considered the league's best big man during his career, but this is one season where he had a very intriguing case. His competition was Hakeem Olajuwon and David Robinson, and the league voters decided to give him the nod by selecting him to the All-NBA first team. For this one glorious year, he could say that he was the greatest center in a league dominated by big men. He didn't just have the numbers, he also had the team success. At the All-Star break, they had the 2nd best record in the East. All the MVP talk was absolutely warranted. But then, everything seemed to crumble apart. There was a 10-game stretch during the month of March where they went 1-9. If that's not bad enough, they lost to teams they had no business losing to. They lost to teams like the 22-60 Minnesota Timberwolves, the 18-64 Orlando Magic, the 19-63 Charlotte Hornets, and the 17-65 New Jersey Nets. They went from being 2nd in the East to the 5th seed. What happened to this team? Everyone figured out how to beat them, including the bottom feeders. The game plan was simple: surround Ewing with 2 and 3 players and dare the others to beat them from the outside. The pressure was on the others to produce, and they bombed every single time. That was especially the case during crunch time. They didn't have that one player who could close out games, which was the story of Patrick's career. There was also another factor that contributed to their poor play. Charles Oakley broke his hand late in the season. For the 17 games that he was out, they went 6-11. He was someone who helped ease the load for Ewing on the boards and on defense. Without him, it was up to Patrick to do everything. That is a recipe for disaster. There was very little hope for this team in the playoffs. They were going to face the Boston Celtics. Larry Bird was no longer playing at an MVP level, but he was still a top 10 player. He led his team to 52 wins. This was not going to be an easy series. Take, for example, what they did in Game 2. They destroyed the Knicks. They won 157-128. That is the most points scored by a team in NBA playoff history. 8 players scored in double figures, and they shot 67% as a team. Very few people thought the Knicks could beat them 3 games in a row. That is when Patrick took his game to a level we have never seen him play in the playoffs. In Game 3, he had 33 points and 19 rebounds. He wasn't efficient as he shot 41%, but he was aggressive. He was going to do everything possible to pull out a victory. In Game 4, he was unstoppable on both ends of the floor. He had 44 points on 75% shooting, 13 rebounds, 5 assists, 7 steals, and 2 blocks. This is the only time in playoff history that a player posted over 40 points and 7 steals. And this came from a center. He was as perfect as you can get. Thanks to this marvelous performance, the Knicks won by 27 points. It all came down to the deciding 5th game. You knew Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, and Dennis Johnson were going to step up, and that's exactly what they did. They weren't ever going to give you the game. You were going to have to outplay them. This time, Patrick's teammates stepped up. Charles Oakley had 26 points on 8 of 11 shooting, along with 17 rebounds. Maurice Cheeks had 21 points on 8 of 10 shooting. Then there was Ewing, who had himself a great all-around performance. He had 31 points on 54% shooting, 10 assists, 8 rebounds, and 4 blocks. This performance has been made famous by this dagger three-pointer that sucked the life out of the Boston Garden. It was one of the finest moments of his playoff career. But he wasn't done yet. Their next playoff opponent was the defending champions, the Detroit Pistons. After going down 2-0 in the series, he had one last dominant performance in him. In Game 3, he imposed his will against the best and most physical defensive team in the league. He ended up with 45 points on 58% shooting, 13 rebounds, 6 assists, and 3 blocks. This allowed him to make even more history. This was the second time that he posted a game score of over 40 in the same postseason. That makes him the only center to accomplish this feat since 1978, which is how far back the stat will go. Not even Shaq, Hakeem, or Jokic has been able to do this. That is how dominant Ewing was during this season. Unfortunately, that wasn't enough to defeat the eventual champions as they were bounced in 5 games. They simply didn't have the talent or the proper coaching to take this team to the next level. But that doesn't take away from what he accomplished. This season is a reminder of how great Patrick Ewing was in his prime. At his peak, he was the best center in the game. If we're just talking the regular season, this has a strong argument for being the greatest regular season by any player in franchise history. But what about you all? What do you remember the most from this season? What do you think was the biggest reason why the Knicks couldn't make the most of his prime? And do you think this is the greatest season by any Knicks player? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.